everybody, it's Maddie here. Today I'm going to be giving you another granny square tutorial. Today we're going to be making the classic granny square, but I'm going to show you how you can change the color in between each row. Also, if you're a beginner, this is a good video to start with because I go pretty slow and it only uses just a few stitches. And definitely my favorite granny squares to make just because they're so simple. Alright, let's begin crocheting. The yarn I'm going to be using today is going to be a medium weight acrylic yarn, but of course you can use whatever type of yarn that you want, just as long as your crochet hook is a good size for the yarn that you're using. I'm going to be using a 5mm size crochet hook today. And to begin making our granny square, we're going to start off by making a slip knot. And to do that, you're going to take the tail end of your yarn and you're going to hold that in your left hand like this. And then with your long strand, just go ahead and cross it over to make a loop. And then you're going to stick your fingers through the loop and you're going to grab the long strand like this and kind of pull it out that loop. Hold both of these tails and pull that nice and tight. And you should be left with a slip knot, a little knot here and your loop. You can go ahead and put that on your crochet hook and pull on your long strand to tighten up your slip knot, just like that. And now from here, we're going to go ahead and chain 5. And to make a chain, we're going to go ahead and take our hook, we're going to yarn over, and then just pull through like this to make one chain. Let's go ahead and make another chain. So just yarn over and pull through. 2, yarn over, pull through. There's 3, 4, and 5 chains. After you have your 5 chains, we're going to go ahead and do a slip stitch in the first chain that we made at the very beginning. And to make a slip stitch, we're going to take our hook and we're going to insert it through this first chain here. So just insert your hook through the chain, go ahead and yarn over, and then you're going to pull out a loop, so out of that chain, and then from here you should have 2 loops on your hook. We're going to go ahead and put this loop into this one. So just pull it through like that. And now you've made a slip knot. And as you can see here, we've made a ring with those chains. And in that ring is where we're going to be putting our stitches into. So after you make your ring of chains, we're going to go ahead and chain 5. So just yarn over and pull through. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. After those 5 chains, we're now going to go ahead and make our first double crochet cluster, and that is going to be one of these clusters here. So as you can see, this blob of like stitches right here is going to be one cluster, and the clusters just consist of 3 double crochets. So I'll show you how to do that. So after the 5 chains, we're going to go ahead and make our first double crochet into this ring of chains. And to make a double crochet, we're going to take our hook, we're going to yarn over, and then we're going to insert a hook through the ring of chains. So I'm just put my hook through the ring, and then from here we're going to yarn over and pull out a loop, so back out of the ring of chains. And then from here, as you can see, we now have 3 loops on our hook. And now from here we're going to yarn over and we're going to pull through 2 of the loops, so 1, 2, and then we're going to yarn over again and pull through the last 2 loops, just like that. So now we've made our first double crochet right here. Let's go ahead and make another double crochet. We're going to go ahead and yarn over, insert our hook through the ring of chains, yarn over, and pull out a loop. So then you should have the 3 loops on your hook. We're going to go ahead and yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over again, and pull through the last 2. So now we've made our second double crochet. We're going to make one more double crochet, so we have a total of 3, and that is going to make our first cluster. So let's go ahead and yarn over, insert our hook through the ring, yarn over, and pull out a loop. So then you should have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through the last 2, just like that. And now we have made our first double crochet cluster right here. After that first cluster, we're going to go ahead and chain 3. So just yarn over and pull through. 1, 2, and 3. After the 3 chains, we're going to go ahead and make another cluster of those 3 double crochets into this ring of chains. So again, to make a double crochet, go ahead and yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull out a loop, so you should have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. So there's 1 double crochet. Let's go ahead and make 2 more double crochets. There's 2. and 3. And now as you can see, we have 2 double crochet clusters. After that second cluster, we're going to go ahead and chain 3. Yarn over and pull through. 1, 2, and 3. After we chain 3, we'll go ahead and make another cluster of the 3 double crochets. So yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. So you have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through the last 2. There's 1 double crochet, 2, and 3. So there's our third cluster. And now as you can see, we just need 1 more cluster to make this into a square. And we also have these 5 chains that we made at the very beginning. And 3 of these chains is actually going to count as one of the double crochets in the 4th cluster. So we're only going to have to do 2 double crochets for that last cluster. But before we do that, we need to go ahead and chain 3 after this last cluster. So just 1, 2, and 3 chains, and now we can finish off this last double crochet cluster. And to do that, just go ahead and do 2 double crochets instead of the 3. So there's 1 and 2. And now as you can see, it looks a little bit weird, but that's okay. To finish off this first round, we're going to make a slip stitch into the 3rd chain that we made at the very beginning. So here we have the 5 chains. We're going to count 1, 2, 3. So in this 3rd chain, we're going to go ahead and insert our hook. So just insert your hook through the chain, yarn over, pull out a loop, and then put this loop into this one. So just pull all the way through to make a slip stitch. And now we've completed the first row. Isn't that adorable? We have a tiny square. For the second row, I'm going to be doing the cream color. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this green yarn. I'm also leaving a little bit of a tail. And I'm just going to go ahead and fasten this off completely because that's the way I like to switch my colors. And to do that, I'm just going to pull my hook all the way out till the tail comes out, and then pull on that to make sure it's nice and tight. And then grabbing my next color and then my hook, and I'm going to put my hook through this first corner space right here. So just putting my hook through that, and then taking my yarn, I'm just putting it onto the hook, and then just pulling that through till the tail comes out. So you have something that looks like this. And then I'm just going to go ahead and tie a simple knot like this onto the square. And I like to make sure that's nice and tight. It should look like this. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and take my hook again and put it back through that same corner space where the chain 3s are. And I'm going to grab the yarn and pull up a loop like this. And now we can begin on that second round. To begin the second round, we're going to go ahead and chain 5. So just yarn over and pull through. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. After the 5 chains, also as you can see here, we have the 2 tails. You can go ahead and move this out of the way or sew it in now if you want, but I'm going to sew in the tails once I finish this square, so I'm just going to move that out of the way. Now after the 5 chains, we're going to go ahead and make 1 cluster into this first corner space. Again, the clusters just consist of 3 double crochets. And I'll go ahead and show you again how to make another double crochet. So just go ahead and yarn over, insert your hook through this corner space, yarn over, pull out a loop. So then you should have 3 loops on your hook like this. Go ahead and yarn over and pull through 2 of the loops, yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops to make our first double crochet. Let's go ahead and make 2 more double crochets. So we have a total of 3 for this first cluster here. There's 2. And 3. So now, as you can see here, we have made our first cluster. Now for the second row, we only have corner spaces to work in. And if you look on this completed granny square, in each of the corners, we put 2 clusters in each of those spaces. And then if we had a middle space, which we will get to in the next row, we are only going to be putting 1 cluster into that space. I'll walk you through all the steps, but I thought I'd show you now. Anyway, once you finish this first cluster of the 3 double crochets, go ahead and chain 1. And we're going to move on to this next corner space. In this space, we're going to go ahead and put our first cluster of the 3 double crochets. So after the first chain, we're going to go ahead and make our first double crochet in that next space. There's 1, 2, and 3. After we make the first cluster, we're going to go ahead and chain 3. So just yarn over and pull through. 1, 2, and 3. After we chain 3, we're going to put 3 more double crochets into this corner space to make the second cluster. So There's 1 double crochet, 2, and 3. So now we have 2 clusters in the corner space. Now we can move on to the next space. And in this space, we're going to do the same thing that we did here. But before we do that, make sure to go ahead and chain 1. And now we can start working into this next space. So starting off, we're going to make 3 double crochets for the first cluster. 1, 2, and 3. After we make the first cluster, go ahead and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And then put your second cluster into the corner space. There's 1, 2, and 3. Go ahead and chain 1. And now we're going to work into this next corner space. And in this space, we're doing the same thing that we did here and here, where we're going to put 2 of those double crochet clusters separated by 3 chains. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. There's the first cluster. Go ahead and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to work 3 more double crochets into the corner. Just like that. Go ahead and chain 1. And now I'll go ahead and show you how we're going to finish off the second round. So going back into this first corner space, we're going to put 2 double crochets. So let's go ahead and make our first double crochet. There's 1 and 2. Just like that. And then from here, we're going to slip stitch into the third chain that we made at the very beginning. So where these 5 chains are, we're going to slip stitch into the third one. So 1, 2, 3. Go ahead and insert your hook through that chain, yarn over, and pull out a loop, and then put this loop in through this one to make a slip stitch. Just like that. Before we begin our third round, I'm going to go ahead and trim this yarn. And we're going to change back to this green color. Go ahead and fasten that off. So just pull your hook all the way out till the tail comes out. Pull on that to make sure it's tight. And now we're ready to make round 3. To switch colors, I'm going to do it the same way I did previously. So I'm just going to go ahead and take my next color and my crochet hook. I'm going to put it through this corner space here. Grab this yarn, put it on your hook, and just pull that through. So your yarn goes through that corner. And then from here, I'm just going to go ahead and tie a simple knot just like this. And of course, making sure that that is nice and tight, just like this. And then I'm going to grab my hook again, put it back through that corner space, and grab the yarn and pull it up. And now we're ready to begin row 3. To start row 3, we're going to go ahead and chain 5. So just yarn over and pull through. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. After the 5 chains, we're going to go ahead and put our first double crochet cluster into this corner space here. So let's go ahead and make our first double crochet into the first corner space that we're in. There's 1. Let's make 2 more double crochets, so we have a total of 3. There's 2 and 3. After the first cluster, we're going to go ahead and chain 1. And we can move on to the next space. Now, as you can see here, unlike the second round, we now have these middle spaces here, and they're not just all corner spaces. And in these spaces, all we're going to do is just put 1 double crochet cluster in the space. So after the chain 1, we're going to go ahead and work 3 double crochets into this space here. So let's start off with our first double crochet. There's 1, 2, and 3. And now we are finished with that space. Let's move on to this next space, which is a corner space. Go ahead and chain 1. And now we can work into this next space. As you can see, it is a corner space, and we're going to do the same thing that we did in the previous round, where we put 2 double crochet clusters into the one space, separated by 3 chains. So again, I'll show you how to do that. We're going to go ahead and start off by making 1 cluster into the corner space, which is just the 3 double crochets. 2, just like that. There's 3 double crochets. Go ahead and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. And then after that, we're going to put 3 more double crochets back into the corner space. So just make our first double crochet. There's 1, 2, and 3. So now we've made that corner area here. After the corner, as you can see, the next spot is just a middle space. And in that middle space, we're just going to put the 1 cluster in there. But before we do that, make sure to go ahead and chain 1. And now we can work into that middle space. And go ahead and put 3 double crochets in there. 2 and 3. Just like that. Go ahead and chain 1. And now, as you can see, the next space is a corner space. And in that corner space, you're just going to do the same thing that we did in the previous corner space, where we do 3 double crochets, chain 3, and then 3 double crochets. And then, of course, the next space will be a middle space, so you'll just put 1 cluster in there, and then you'll put 2 in here, and 1 cluster. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll meet up with you when we make it to the end, and I'll show you how to finish it off. Alright, I almost made it to the very end of this round. As you can see, the last thing I did was just put one cluster in this middle space here. After that, I'm going to go ahead and chain one. And we're going to move on to this first corner space that we started this round in. And in that space, we're just going to put 2 double crochets. So go ahead and make 1 double crochet. There's 1. And then 2. After the 2 double crochets, we're going to do a slip stitch into the 3rd chain that we made at the very beginning. So 1, 2, and 3. We're going to go ahead and take our hook, place it into the 3rd stitch, and then yarn over, pull out a loop, and then put this loop in through here. And there's your slip stitch. I'm going to go ahead and trim this color yarn and fasten it off. So just pull your hook all the way out and pull on it to make sure it's tight. And ta-da! It's looking more like a granny square. It's so pretty. For my last color, I'm going to use, of course, the white again. And to attach it, I'm just going to attach it the same way that we have done in the previous rounds. So just pull the yarn all the way out. So that way it's through that corner space. And then from here, I'm just going to go ahead and make a simple knot to tie that onto our square. Of course, make sure that's nice and tight. Go ahead and insert your hook through the corner space, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Now we can begin on the next round, which is actually going to be the final round for this granny square. And to start this round, we're going to start it just like we did for the previous rounds. We're going to go ahead and chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then go ahead and put 1 cluster into this corner space, which is the 3 double crochets. So there's 1, 2, and 3, just like that. Go ahead and chain 1, and we can move on to the next space. Now, as you can see here, we now have 2 middle spaces on the side of our granny square, and then we get to a corner. And in each of these next 2 middle spaces, we're just going to put 1 double crochet cluster in each of those spaces. So after the chain 1, we're going to go ahead and put 3 double crochets in this next chain space. 1, 2, and 3. After that, go ahead and chain 1. We'll move on to the next space and put 1 cluster in there, just like that. Go ahead and chain 1, and we're going to put 2 clusters in this next corner space, which you've seen me do the corners in the last 2 previous rounds. And to do that, just go ahead and make 1 cluster of the 3 double crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. Go ahead and chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and then put another cluster of the 3 double crochets back into the same corner, just like that. And we're pretty much just going to be repeating that all the way around the granny square. Of course, don't forget to chain 1 in between when moving from one space to the other. So after you finish that last cluster, just go ahead and chain 1, and then you can move on to the next space. I'm going to go ahead and finish up this row doing 1 cluster in each of the middle spaces, 2 in the corners, and I'll show you how to finish off this final round. Alright, I just finished going around the entire square, and I'll go ahead and show you how to fasten it off. We're going to fasten it off the same way that we did in the previous rounds. So after this last cluster, go ahead and chain 1, and then we're going to put 2 double crochets into this first corner that we worked in. So there's 1 double crochet, and then 2 double crochets, just like that. And then we're going to slip stitch into the 3rd chain right here, just like that. And then we can go ahead and trim our yarn and make sure to pull on that to make sure it's tight. And ta-da! We now have a granny square with lots of loose ends. Yeah, it's fun. I'm going to go ahead and sew all the ends in, and then you can see the final square. And ta-da, that's how you make a stack of granny squares. This is how many I have for my next current project. I'm making a granny square vest. It's gonna look like this, but with these granny squares, and I think it's gonna be so pretty. I've never made a vest before, so I'm pretty excited to finish it. I still need lots more granny squares though. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know down below in the comments what you're gonna make with your granny squares, and if you need project ideas, I have a full video on granny square project ideas. You can check that out next if you're looking for your next crochet projects. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!